After completing my 10th class exams in 1979, my father suggested that I go and help my father's uncle and learn astrology. Mathematics being my favorite subject, I learned the calculations. My grandfather taught me how to calculate the inclinations of each planet and how to calculate the lagna and the meridian center MC. And he gave me some birth charts to draw. Thus, I learned how to draw the birth charts first and showed interest in predictions. So my grandfather told me some predictions, some of the tips that he usually uses for predictions, and after learning those tips I documented some of them. I verified with my father. While my father and my grandfather have laid the foundation for me to get interested in astrology, for almost a decade or 2 decades, I didn't show any interest.
Welcome to Shasikara's astrological series. As usual, for the past 6 to 7 years, I am posting a number of videos in my YouTube channel, and which are free for most of them. And apart from that, earlier to that, I did post some scribed articles in the scribed website, and which I came to know that people are getting charged for downloading my articles. Recently, I started a website www.karraastrology.com. I'll repeat again www.karraastrology. Karra Astrology is all one word. Karraastrology.com is my new website, and most of the information pertaining to me, whether it is in the articles in the WordPress or in Scribd or the recent YouTube presentations that had been posted in my channel, all of those are available in my website. And apart from that, I started a new paid consultation, and the payments will be when I tell my what is my fees. The payment should be paid either to an orphanage in India. I will provide the address for that payment details, or to the homeless center here in New Jersey. So for those who are residing in India, they will be paying to an orphanage in Hyderabad, and for those who are residing outside India, they have to pay to a homeless center here in New Jersey. So if you are interested to get paid consultation, please visit my website and click the contact me button, and then provide all the information over there. To the extent possible, I will be responding at the most within 3 to 5 business days. Thank you very much. I'm hoping that you will like my presentations, and this is some presentation which I'm going to post it within as soon as I can.
Welcome to Shastrikara's astrological series. In this presentation, I am going to talk about the Rahu Mahadasa and its impact on a particular native. In Vimsottari Dasa, generally the Vimsottari Dasa is for 120 years. So for any human being, the human being will be getting the Rahu Mahadasa only once in his or her lifetime. There will be no second of chance for the need to enter into Rahu Mahadasa. So the chances for the Rahu Mahadasa to have its impact more than once is close to zero for human beings. Now when it comes to a country, you need to have a country which was born at least 200 or 240, 200 and 200 to 240 years ago. That particular country, well, there is a possibility for that particular country to go through the Rahu Mahadasa for the second time. So finally, we have United States of India, which is born in 1776. It's almost 250 to 300, 260 years old. So this particular country, United States, had gone through the Rahu Mahadasa for 2 times, and now currently it is going through the third time. So the third time Rahu Mahadasa started in July 2016. The earlier 2 times where first as soon as the country was born, after 3 days it had the Mars Mahadasa balance, and then immediately on the fourth day the country was born, that is on 7th or 8th of July 1776 Rahu Mahadasa started. And then another, after 120 years later, the Rahu Mahadasa started for the second time, and recently the third time it started in 2016. So what exactly is am I going to try to analyze here is the Rahu during the Rahu Mahadasa and the Rahu Antardasa, which lasts for 2.5 years. During these 2.5 years, what unexpected changes can happen for any particular native or a country. And here, by taking the example of United States, I am trying to analyze the unexpected events that had happened to the country during Rahu Mahadasa and Rahu Antardasa, those 2.5 years, during the first cycle, which is July 1776 till August 7, sorry, July 1776 till January of 1777. That's the first Rahu Mahadasa Rahu Antardasa period. And again the next second cycle is somewhere in 1914, and the third one started on in July 2016 and lasted till January 2019, around 2.5 years. So in this presentation I will try to tell you as much in detail as possible how to predict the Rahu Mahadasa along, and especially during the Rahu Antardasa, how to predict that what type of unexpected events can happen in which parts of the life for a particular native. So when the Rahu Mahadasa started, the very first thing that you can notice is some sort of an unexpected event to start. And so that question, why is that? Because let me give a small introduction about Rahu. Rahu and Ketu are the northern and the southern nodes for moon, and these two are the two imaginary points. And the Rahu Mahadasa is 18 years, and this is usually treated as a snake with a head is considered to be Rahu. The snake with a tail is considered to be Ketu. So during the Rahu Mahadasa, most important things that you can predict or anticipate is fear, dissatisfaction, uncomfortability, unexpectedness, and anything that pertains to mental distress or mental agony is what you usually notice during the Rahu Mahadasa, and especially during Rahu Mahadasa and Rahu Antardasa. So the position of natal Rahu during the in general tells you what type of agony in which part of the life, the native's life, will that discomfort and unexpected things to happen is what you can tell by looking at the natal Rahu. During the Rahu Mahadasa and the Rahu Antardasa, that's when one has to go through the transit Rahu position during the 2.5 years, where exactly is the transit Rahu residing, and then you have to look at the natal Rahu's impact, and then consider transit Rahu being a natal Rahu, and then look at the natal Rahu's impact. When you're looking at the natal Rahu's impact, you have to look the houses from natal moon or Chandra Lagna, using Chandra Lagna, and then you try to consolidate both the impacts and try to see which one, what are the events that you are predicting is closely related to the native's life at that particular point, and then try to predict it. For example, if you notice that the Rahu during Rahu Mahadasa and Rahu Antardasa, there's a possibility for a native to get divorced, and if the native is just 5 or 7 years old, that prediction doesn't look ethical. So you have to look at the social environment, the economic environment, and the age of the native, the gender by also, and then predict accordingly. That's what I'm going to do here by looking at the environment for the country, and then try to tell you why that event has happened. Since the events are already happened and it is just an analysis, it's very easy to correlate the event with the astrological justifications.
So let's start looking at the first cycle of the Rahu Mahadasa for United States of America. According to the birth chart, when the country was born in 1776, Rahu is in Cancer, co-joined with the 8th house Lord Mercury, and then transit Rahu moved to the previous house, which is the 8th house, in May 1777. So if you look at it, the Rahu Mahadasa and the Rahu Antardasa was during when it became more noticeable when transit Rahu entered the 8th house, where it has co-joined with 4 important natal planets: natal Mars, natal Venus, natal Sun, and natal Jupiter. If you look, Sun, natal Mercury is the 8th house Lord, Sun is the 10th house Lord, Mars is the Lagnadipati, Jupiter is the 2nd house Lord, and Venus is the 12th house Lord, 6th and the 12th house Lord. So when transit Rahu entered Gemini and co-joined with these 4 natal planets, the most important that happened were the confederation of the 1770 constitution that was started in 1776 was being finalized in 1777. So during the 8th house transit Rahu and Rahu Mahadasa and Rahu Antardasa, the major event that has happened is the finalization of the Constitution of the United States of America, and there were some amendments that were pending up during that time. Once transit Rahu moved to Taurus in January 1778, remember in January 1778 still the Rahu Mahadasa is running and our Rahu Antardasa is also running there. That means when transit Rahu moved to the 7th house from Rasi Lagna and the 4th house from Chandra Lagna, that is in January 1778, the most important that you can see, is the country is still struggling with the civil war, and the struggle for the independence is still going on. So in another way, what you can say is that the country is in a war for independence war. If the country is going through the independence war, so that's something that has not is unpredictable at that time for these locals to fight against the British Army and for independence. This is exactly what happened during the Rahu Mahadasa and Rahu Antardasa during the first cycle. When the second cycle of the Rahu Mahadasa started for the country, United States of America, the Mahadasa began on 6th July 1896 and it lasted all the way till 1914. So that 18 years is the Rahu Mahadasa, and Rahu Mahadasa and Rahu Antardasa started in July 1896 and lasted till July 1899. That is approximately for 3 years we had the Rahu Mahadasa and Rahu Antardasa. In these 3 years, let's go and look at where is the transit Rahu during these 3 years. In 1896, July 1896, when Rahu Mahadasa started, transit Rahu is in the 4th house from Rashi Lagna, co-joined with natal moon. Natal moon is the 10th house Lord from Rashi Lagna. And again, when you look from the Chandra Lagna, transit Rahu is in the 1st house, having a direct aspect on the 7th house. And then in July 1897, it moved to Capricorn, which is the 3rd house from Rashi Lagna and the 12th house from Chandra Lagna, and that's where it co-joined with natal Ketu. That means transit Rahu is having a direct aspect with natal Rahu and natal Mercury. Natal Mercury is the 8th house Lord. and 11th house Lord too. That is a very important thing to know. So between July 1897 and July 1899, approximately for 2 years, 1.5 to 2 years it will be there. So the transit Rahu is in the 12th house from Chandra Lagna and the 3rd house from Rashi Lagna, and having a direct aspect on natal Rahu and the 8th house Lord natal Mercury. So this is the period where a major changes can be expected due to transit Rahu being in the 12th house from Rashi Lagna and having a direct aspect on the 9th house, which is the Dharmasthanamo, and the 6th house from Chandra Lagna. The 6th house is Rogasthanamo for a NATO. So let's go and look at what exactly has happened between July 1897 and July 1899. So when I went back and looked at the Wikipedia, what I noticed was that during this period, Rahu Mahadasa and Rahu Antardasa, starting July 1896 to July 1899, the country was in the process of being expanding. That means that it's the westward expansion is going on, and a number of major legislative bills were approved during this period. This is very important here to notice, is that a number of legislative bills will be approved because Rahu is the one who is going to create uncertainty, and so the bills that were approved might be something that has a direct relationship with some sort of an unexpected event or unexpected decisions made by the government. So if you look at it, according to Wikipedia, between 1865 and 1918, in United States it's called the Reconstruction era, then the Gilded Age, and the Progressive era. And the most important thing that we need to look here is the Progressive era, and that is the time when the non-farmer workers in this country had grown by almost 75% between 1865 and 1900. That is when Rahu is in the 12th house from Chandra Lagna or the 3rd house from Rashi Lagna, and having a direct aspect on the 9th house where natal Rahu and the 8th house Lord Mercury is residing. That's when the population, the immigration has expanded in the country, and non-workers, the immigration people who migrated from Europe and settled in United States, they were all some sort of a non-farm workers, and that particular population grew by 75%. And now coming to the point of legal, the legislative bills that were approved, the most important is in 1896, Supreme Court upheld the Jim Crow system of racial segregation and its separate but equal doctrine. This is the 1896 Jim Crow racial segregation law is created in 1896, and that has lasted for a long time. And the second one is in February of 1898. Remember, February 1898, Rahu is in Sagittarius. That is the 2nd house from Rashi Lagna and 11th house from Chandra Lagna. And transit Rahu is having a direct aspect on the 8th house from Rashi Lagna and 5th house from Chandra Lagna, where it has 4 natal planets, where it is aspecting 4 natal planets. So in 1898, during that time, there was war was declared in April 1898. That is I think, if I remember correctly, it is the US-Spanish War. And then again in 1898 December, US has acquired the Philippines from Spain. US won the war and acquired Philippines from Spain in 1898 December via the Treaty of Paris, which ended the Spanish-American War. So if you look at it, because the transit sector Rahu is in the 2nd house from Rashi Lagna and that 11th from Chandra Lagna, its direct aspect on the 8th house has created all this mess, and the period is Rahu Mahadasa and Rahu Antardasa at that time. For the third time, Rahu Mahadasa started on 6th July 2016, and Rahu Mahadasa and Rahu Antardasa lasted for 2 years, 9 months, approximately 3 years, is until April 2019. So let's go and look at all the major events that happened between July 2016 and April 2019. The very first thing that you see is there is a general election in July 2016 November. Presidential election was there, and I think approximately after 25th of June or 4th of July 2016 is when the then business typhoon Mr. Donald J. Trump announced his willingness to be the Republican presidential candidate, and then he won starting June 2017 when transit Rahu entered the ninth house, the Dharmasthanamu. He was chosen as the president of the country in January 2017, and 6 months later transit Rahu entered the Dharmasthanamu, the ninth house. If you look at it, transit Rahu was there in the 10th house between January 2016 and June 2017. That is, Sun is the Leo is the 10th house, Sun is the Lord, Sun is the King, and transit Rahu is residing there, and that has created the unexpected event for an unexpected person to be the king of the country. That's exactly what happened in November 2016, and in January 2017 is when he became the president of the country, which nobody ever had expected. And then in June 2017, when transit Rahu was in the ninth house, the Dharmasthanam, and co-joined with natal Rahu and natal 8th house Lord Mercury in Dharmasthanamu, starting to June 2017 until January 2019. I'm sure a lot of people have noticed how drastic the things were in the country. I don't need to give any explanation because this is the current version of it. And then in January 2019, transit Rahu entered the 8th house, the Gemini. That's where he co-joined with the Sun, Mars, Venus and Jupiter, all the 4 natal planets. And in January 2019 all the way till November 2020, it was there. Okay, so you can see how bad the things happened starting January 2019 when it has co-joined, when it entered the 8th house and co-joined with the 4 natal planets. And by December 2019 is when we got the COVID-19. From January 2020, the COVID-19 is still started creating havoc in the country. In September 2020, transit Rahu entered Taurus, that is the 7th house from Rashi Lagna and the 4th house from Chandra Lagna. That's exactly when things started to change with respect to the king of the country. And I think somewhere in after September 2020 is when the president who was elected in November 2016 started to have a negative impact, because transit Rahu has left the 8th house and entered the 7th house. So overall, during the Rahu Mahadasa and Rahu Antardasa, the third cycle, which started in July 2016 and ended in April 2019, you can see how much havoc the transit Rahu co-joining with natal Rahu has created, and also how much havoc the transit Rahu has created when it entered the 8th house from Rashi Lagna and the 5th house from Chandra Lagna. Remember, 5th house from Chandra Lagna means 5th house deals with the sports, arts and entertainment for a country. And since January of 2019, there was so much of problems from in one way or the other, unexpected, unanticipated issues in the sports, arts and entertainment industries starting January 2019, and from January 2020, because of COVID, that issue has become exponentially increased. So overall, what I was trying to tell is during the Rahu Mahadasa and Rahu Antardasa, one thing is for sure is some unexpected events are sure to happen. The only thing is unexpected events in which house depends upon where the transit Rahu is during that period. Once you know where the transit Rahu is during that period, then you can predict what are the possible unexpected events to happen. Preferably, the chances are extremely high when you look at the house from natal moon in the chart, and the chances are close to very not that to be considered when you look from the Rashi Lagna. Thank you very much for watching this video.